धागे न तिनक धिन 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 धागे न तिनक धिन.
Every day I wake, I make my mind up. I'ma be the one, be the truth, be the way. Yeah. Every day I wake, I make my mind up. Gotta keep my mind on the because they only telling a side of the story. Out here telling lies like they on Maury. Them poor rich kids get their money on phone it. But down here in the hood, yeah, we know Forex. We growing up, yeah. We got the good. Good of them assets, good of my bad. Get rid of cash before the whole market crash. A news flash, just a flash from the past. We gonna smash it. Be prepared to hit the gas. Yeah.
Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, put your game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel.
Try.
Blood eye, and we travel.
Woo. That's my child. Woo.
Blood eye, and we travel. Hey, hey, hit him with the higher. Yeah. Sherry no haka from Virginia. Yeah.
I know I'm more because I'm blessed. I know I'm more. I pass the test.
We got to see with the true eyes. We need some brand new bright ideas. We got the hearts and some great minds, yeah. If we could all just be sincere.
Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, put your game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel.
Try.
Blood eye, and we travel.
Woo. That's my child. Woo.
Blood eye, and we travel. Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, put your game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel. Hey, hey, hit him with the higher, yeah.
Not tonight. I don't wanna fuss and fight. I just wanna make it right. Ooh, there's work to do. I wanna give you close to you. I wanna give you all the things you want to do. Just relax and I'll take care of you. And anytime you want me, saying that I love you every day, and I know like you love me, baby, you mean it.
This could take quite a bit of time.
Pardon my autonomy. I know one day they'll honor me. This ain't pertaining to 28 Deuteronomy. Self-determination, controlling our situation. Ain't no more indoctrination from pale faces. How the fuck you bummy and broke but a pale racist? My lineage free people of color with a left make each nigga. This right here maroon, now it ain't burgundy. If you plotting murder, I'm certain that you'll need surgery. Hurt from when the burner squeeze. Protecting tribe business. Only consulting with governments, tribe to tribe with it. Please don't confuse us with those considered native. Semi-autonomy never was in our nature. Just address me as Esther Lucy. Wild Indian status and Cherokees riding Ruchis. In my war bonnet, if you want it, bring it to your region. And black forces the same color the European. Pardon my autonomy, I know one day they'll honor me. This ain't pertaining to 28 Deuteronomy. Self-determination, controlling our situation. Ain't no more indoctrination from pale faces.
Aborigines, which means what? Black folk. You never find a white aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are aborigines, but you don't like to be called an aborigine.
The jaguar priests of Mexico came from Africa. In ancient Africa, the priest is associated with the leopard. The leopard was master of survival in Africa. The spotted feline is associated with African religious political tradition. It was transferred from Africa to Mexico. In Africa, the spotted feline is a leopard. In America, it was the jaguar. Many African nations in ancient and modern times have used the leopard skin as a symbol of authority, as a symbol of religion, as a symbol of leadership. Here we see a Cushite priest. Next, we have a South African priest with the leopard skin and feathers in his hair. Finally, we have an Egyptian priest. Note the leopard skin around the priest as he stands before his god. In Mexico, there were no leopards in Mexico, so the Mexican priest used the jaguar instead. The jaguar was a master of the jungle. They hunted and survived in the thick jungle bush. There are many artifacts that depict these priests wearing jaguar skins. One of the most famous artifact from Mexico is the Chama vase. The Chama vase provides iconographic eyewitness evidence of the jaguar priest in Mexico. Here we see a picture of the jaguar priest. He is standing before the Maya. In honor of the visit of the jaguar priest, the Mayan king is painted black. The surrounding Maya are all painted brown or red. This jaguar priest was named Balim Ahu, which means jaguar lord. It is clear that jaguar lord was holding a spear. He is clearly a priest, not a god, because the hieroglyphic text in front of the figure says his name, Balam Alu. The dark color of Balam Ahu is so important to let us know the important role that black people played. Here's another figure from Mexico. It comes from a mural of one of the many ancient black priests of Mexico. Note the jaguar skin surrounding the priest. He is holding an artifact in his hands. And his entire body, and even the serpent on which he stands, has the jaguar skin. The symbols to the right of the figure give us the name of this priest. His name was Kasufa, which means the honored offering of love. The full inscription is, and I will read, Kasufaita, which means, in translation, Kasufa, you are a sacred object. This shows that the jaguar priest in Mexico was recognized as an important dignitary who played a role not only as a spiritual leader, he was also a political leader. Under the face on the right side of this mural, we can see the words Tagbe Ta, which says the unblemished supporter of the mystic order. So again, we find that in Mexico, these jaguar priests played an important role. Kusufa, for example, was recognized in a sense as a symbol of the mystic order of the people he ruled. These Mexican artifacts make it clear Africans took their priesthood to Mexico. They can change the leopard into the jaguar.
Peace to the party. It's your homeboy back again with the news. Now you see we got a special show. Oh, hold on real quick. Let me adjust my focus. Because we got to be focused on the topic at hand today, which is Florida Negro War, Black Seminole Project Part 2. Dr. Anthony Dixon pulling up. We got Mac here. Mac wanted to start the video off so you see what type of time we on. type of timeline we trying to walk, and we trying to get to the matter at hand. So let me see if Mac ready. Hold on. What up, bro?
What they do?
Another day on it, man.
Indeed, man. Well, this is supposed to happen last week. Shout out to Dr. Dixon for joining us tonight from the Black Seminole Project for this one. From the last time, it's the part 2, like you said, we following up. But you saw the video, Monte, that I played. You know, when you played, you know what I'm saying, that I sent you. Like, I wanted people to see that because it takes us back. You know what I'm saying? Like, anybody that's live with us right now, or even after the fact, they could go and see when the Mayan Empire that had the Jaguar priesthood tied to it started in their Google search. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be real ancient. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just if anybody wants to just go look at a timeline. Matter of fact, it says that they began building ceremonial centers, and by 200 CE, which would be AD, right? CE, AD, synonymous basically. These had developed into cities containing temples, pyramids, places, courts for playing ball, and plazas. The ancient Mayan quarried immense quantities of building stone, usually limestone, which they cut by using harder stones as shirt. That's CHRT, by the way, shirt. You know, if anybody get my pronunciations wrong with this, but obviously just the timeline, because as he also brought up, it's obviously tied to civilizations tied to what we call the Olmec, and popular known the Olmecs. And this obviously in North America is going to be tied to a mound building civilizations of people, tied to chiefdoms or caciques. Like, I might pronounce that wrong too. That's the Spanish term for chiefdoms. You know what I mean? And you know, out there in the East and Africa and other places, they might say kingdoms when you research, like the Congo Kingdom and other things like that. But chiefdom, kingdom, synonymous. But either way, there was kingdoms, chiefdoms, empires, and nations here with priesthoods tied to that jaguar. We call it a panther also. Shout out to all my panthers out there, right? And the Black Panther, as we know too. You know, there is no term black amongst the indigenous cultures lexicon. You know what I'm saying? So the term would have been Lusti, Pentura, or Pentura Lusti. See, because it's going to be Black Panther. See what I'm saying? Because it's a rarity to see the black one. The spotted ones were, well, you know, you see spotted ones, right? So in the manner of what he even talked about, who just opened up in that video, it's still connected to a culture, and they show the depictions. These are on walls. These are on murals. You know what I mean? Just like Bonaparte, you know what I mean, and all that. That's South Central America. So, you know what I mean? We just want to make sure that's cleared up, though. You know what I'm saying? And people can see that and go back and see that they're depicting people we would label today black, right? That's what he said himself, if anybody was listening, right?
Yeah.
I'm not tripping, right? That's what you heard the man say, that black people were here from obviously way before Christopher Columbus. You know what I mean?
Correct.
1492 European ideal of, I like to say the Roman Catholic ideal of. You see what I'm saying? And that's to stick to the script, the Inquisition. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, I'm here though. You know what I'm saying? Well, I wanted to open it up that way. I know we got our guest, Dr. Dixon, with us. You know what I'm saying? So in a minute, he's gonna pull up. But you know what? Since we're talking about the Mississippian culture, is he back there yet?
Not yet. Nah.
All right. You got the other joint from Facebook, right? I found that interesting. So I think it's a good, so before we get into all the dialogue and all that right there, you know what I mean?
All right. I'm about to bring it up now.
This video to him now. Yeah, let him watch this real quick. Tied to that Mississippian culture, which is going to be tied to a certain class of people that we call warriors. Just like there was a priest class. Hold on real quick, Marte, right? So that priest class is obviously tied to the jaguar, right? As it just showed you, jaguar priest. But then there's obviously a warrior class as well. You see what I'm saying? Tied to the these empires, especially the Mayan, Olmec priesthood. Then there's obviously the warrior class. See what I'm saying? And anciently in the Mississippian culture of the mound building culture, the famous individual and group of people who are also named after him, by the name of Tuscaloosa. And we're going to go into that tonight to make sure you understand that this group of people that they're calling DeSoto, Hernandez DeSoto, 1540, is describing the warrior class that he bumps into tied to the Malbending culture that was presently still active in what we call the dazed areas of the Mississippi. That would be Louisiana, Alabama, Carolina, Georgia, Florida, mounds throughout the whole areas, chiefdoms, as they would say. So the Appalachia, as they would say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mississippi and West. So I want to play this clip, and I thought it was interesting before he pulled up, just to give some people some backdrop on some ancient stuff tied to the Essalooski.
All right, I'm about to load it now.
I go.
And these are ancient mound sites turned into plantations, and our ancestors are still buried there. Let's keep going.
Behind me is a local historic cemetery. The cemetery contains the remains of several local white families. It's located on and beside Mound B. This is a common thing here in this part of Mississippi, is to have historic cemeteries located on Indian mounds. It's pretty grown up, but in fairly recent times, we've noticed that there are some additional graves that are outside of the fence. Back behind the fence are what appears to be an African-American cemetery. Apparently fought in the Civil War when he was very young, maybe grew up here when it was a plantation and he was enslaved, and perhaps maybe after the Civil War returned here to work on the plantation as a tenant and then passed away. You can see in some of the bare patches at Blanchard Harris Knowlton, where we've got armadillo diggings, you can see how dark and how rich the midden is. It's like this throughout the site.
We know the truth now.
Yeah,
I like that.
As soon as it came in, Dr. Dixon just pulled up too.
Oh, for sure. I liked everything about that joint. Besides, it said at the end it was the real Kemet. Pseudo this and pseudo that.
Yeah. But that's leading into it's perfect segue, because it's kind of what we need to talk about. So first off, let's bring up Dr. Dixon. Hold on. What's going on, brother? Peace to you.
Hey, good evening, brothers. How we doing? How we feeling?
Another day at it.
To you, Dr. Dixon. How you doing?
Hanging in there, brothers. Hanging in there.
That's what's up, man. Thank you for joining us tonight, man. For your, you've been with us a couple of times, but this is a Q&A too. So anybody that's in the chat, as we're talking about it, if you're familiar with the Black Seminole Project and you do have questions for the doctor, shout out to Zarian Hadley. Please ask them. At the same time, obviously we have our questions and dialogue we want to have with them for this part 2 of this Q&A dealing with the Black Seminole Project, the Negro Florida Wars. So, Dr. Dixon, is there anything you want to open with before we go into anything? Just to give you the floor first.
Is that me?
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I was raising the volume. I didn't hear you there, brother. My volume was too low. Excuse me.
No pressure. Yeah, I said, is there anything you wanted to open up before we go into anything, as far as you want to mention anything so we won't forget anything? So people that's watching live or after the fact.
Anything you want to promo before we get into the conversation while it's fresh on their mind?
Oh, okay. No, I just would like for people to join this movement as we continue to tell the truth, and uncover different aspects that have not been spoken and have not been discussed. The Black Seminole Project is a very important project, so I invite you to visit the website and the social media that we have as well. I also invite you to read the book, which is the basis of the whole project, Florida's Negro War. But I want you to also understand that this is one congruent part of many pieces that we need to continue to put together in order to get a full understanding of the more accurate and cultural aspects of our existence overall.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree with you.
Spot
That's why we
on.
want to have that. I agree with you. That's why we're having this conversation. And that's why everybody should know when we have these conversations, no disrespect. It's not a personal attack on nobody and anything we're talking about. We're just going over things. And it might be personal because some of you are tied to these things. I understand that too. So, but we're not attacking nobody in what we're presenting and what we're trying to give information about dealing with our heritage of people that Dr. Dixon and obviously Zarian Hadley with the Black Seminole Project is covering. And I want to say that I'm honored, Dr. Dixon, for you to let us be the ones to have this conversation with you on it. And shout out to Louis Gossett Jr., by the way, who just passed recently. Matter of fact, because you got the text at the back, I think it's covering Dr. Dixon's face, Monte.
Oh yeah, hold on.
Okay. You might want to. Matter of fact, you can put me at the bottom, put Dr. Dixon, so it won't happen like that if you can.
It ain't gonna let me. I'm gonna change the view in a second. It won't let me
Ain't no
rearrange it,
pressure.
but I just wanted people to see the site. You know, the link is in the chat, so go to it, check it out. You know what I mean? Get all the updates live from the source. This is the official website, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir. So y'all come check them out. Just want y'all to see it real quick. All right, hold on. All right, cool. So go ahead, man.
No, hey, you know, from last time I think we got thrown off to some parts that we want to get into detail about because we asked you to come on here about the dissertation. And you did do a dissertation prior to the book, right? Obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I came across your dissertation, obviously how we do over here at the party, and I sent it to you like, hey, I found this dissertation, you know what I mean? That's what made me ask you, would you mind, giving us your thoughts about it in the time that you wrote it then, and to the time that you obviously putting out the project now tied to your book, the Negro Florida Wars. I think that, you know what I mean? All your time now being involved from writing the dissertation to the book, you know what I mean? You evolved, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes. And that's the thing about it, right? What most people don't understand is that a dissertation is a demonstration that you can do advanced research. That doesn't mean the research is over. You continue to do research, you continue to get oral histories, you continue to discover information that is out there that hasn't been uncovered sometimes. And that's the whole process of it. You continue to work on it, you continue to gather different pieces of evidence that may shed some light on something that you saw it one way 15 years ago, but this piece of evidence is shedding a new light and is giving a new perspective to it. So you go and you dig and you go after oral histories and you go back to even some of the people you had your original oral histories with and say, hey, they have this piece right here. This is what they found. This is what such and such said. Do you know anything about this part? What do you think about this? You know, and this is how you get to continue to uncover the truth. Because you continue to work and you continue to understand that it's not on some linear plane, that it is work that has to continuously be done. This is why the documentary is important, because we're looking at the historical aspects, but we're talking to Black Seminoles of today and getting their perspective on what the issues are, their understanding of their history, what the issues are they're facing today, and their outlook for the future and what they see their community and the direction that their community is going on. And so while I say that, I give a quick shout out to my partner, Brother Zarian, because right now, as we speak, let's see, it's about 7:30 where he is. He's about to conduct 3 more interviews with Black Seminoles out in Oklahoma. He's in Oklahoma right now, and he's about to do between today and tomorrow. We'll be collecting even more evidence. We'll be talking to 3 more Black Seminoles, an elder and 2 actual Black Seminole council members. And so they're going to discuss these same things. You know, what are the critical issues of your past that are internal, that are external? What are the critical issues that you're facing today that are internal and external?
I think that's a perfect segue into, so basically we read your dissertation.
Okay.
I respect the fact that you took the time to combine your sources, like you said, do your research and then formulate it into a demonstration, right?
Yes.
And so basically, you know, what we do is, this is really our passion, is to these pieces of history and tying them to our own genealogy. So I feel like we have a lot to add based on what we read in your dissertation, and we kind of want to break down some of the talking points, hit some of the sources, and make this a whole conversation for the people, because I feel like this would not only be valuable to the project and the research that you already been doing, but for our listeners, so this can help them tie some of their genealogy to this story and make it all make sense in like a real-time situation.
Yes, sounds good to me.
All right, cool. So let's go and take this ride. So I got it on the backdrop here, and I put it in the chat for those of y'all who want to come and read it, and or follow along however you want to do it, right? So respect to the brother once again for putting out this work. So just so they know, we being right and exact, this is the proper dissertation, right?
Yes, sir. That looks like it.
Yes, sir. All right, so you know we do our
Shout
homework,
out
we
to
do
you.
our research. Yeah, shout out to you.
Shout out to you.
So like I said, it's in the chat for those of y'all who want to follow along or read later on your own time. But I wanted to start with the abstract, right?
Okay.
And so for those who may have haven't read a dissertation before, an abstract, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Dixon, is basically like you summarizing the points that you're trying to hit on your demonstration.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just a broad overview that concentrates on the main issues or points that will be discussed.
Yes, sir. Okay, so today we're going to get scholarly, and I'm going to read this abstract for the people, and then we're going to build from there.
Okay.
All right, so it says, I'm going to blow it up a little bit bigger. All right, so it says, this thesis examines the involvement, leadership, and impact of the Black Seminoles during the Second Seminole War. In Florida, free Blacks, runaway slaves, and Blacks owned by Seminoles collectively became known as Black Seminoles. Black Seminoles either lived in separate communities near Seminole Indians or joined them by cohabitating or intermarriage. Throughout this cohabitation, Blacks became an integral part of Seminole life by taking positions as advisors, counselors, and trusted interpreters to the English, who were rapidly advancing plantation society into territorial Florida. By the advent of the Second Seminole War, Black Seminoles, unlike their Seminole Indian counterparts, were not given the opportunity to immigrate westward, immigrate with an E, westward under the United States government's Indian removal policy. The United States government's objective became to return as many Black Seminoles, if not all, to slavery. Therefore, it became the Seminoles' objective to resist enslavement or re-enslavement for many on American plantations. The introduction explains the objective and focus of this study. Moreover, it explains the need and importance of this study while examining the historiography of the Second Seminole War in relation to the Black Seminoles. The origins and cultural aspects of the Black Seminoles is the topic of Chapter 1. By examining the origins and cultural aspects of the Black Seminoles, this study establishes the autonomy of the Black Seminoles from their Indian counterparts. Chapter 2 focuses on the relationship and alliance between Seminole Blacks and Indians. Research concerning Black Seminole involvement throughout the war allows Chapter 3 to reconstruct the Second Seminole War from the Black Seminole perspective. A biographical approach is utilized in Chapter 4 in order to understand the Black Seminole leadership. This chapter examines the lives of the three most prominent Black Seminole leaders during the war. The overall impact of the Black Seminole involvement in the war is the focus of Chapter 5. And Chapter 6 summarizes this study and provides the historiography of the Second Seminole War with a perspective that remained relatively obscure. It is clear that from the onset of the war, the United States government, military, and state militias grossly underestimated both the determination and the willingness of the Black Seminole to resist at all costs. Throughout the war, both United States military and political strategies were constructed and reconstructed to compensate both for the intensity with which the Black Seminoles fought, as well as their political savvy during negotiations. This study examines the impact of the Black Seminoles on the Second Seminole War within the context of Maroonage, and subsequently interprets the Second Seminole War itself as a form of a slave rebellion. All right, so the first things first, when I read it, we already agree with the fact here at the party, as far as what they would call Negroes fighting in these wars. Undisputed, we won't have any disagreement here. But I think the larger question that we formed as a party was, I think there's more to it that needs to be uncovered, which is really an even bigger story than just the wars itself, which is basically the premise that we're ready to prove is that this war wasn't comprised of runaway slaves or people from Africa or people that the Indians that they're labeling basically were the Black people. It wasn't the other way around, as if we were their slaves. We were the people they considered the Indians. And I think that revisionist history is labeling them with the slave narrative and things of that sort. And that's kind of the conversation we wanted to go down based on not the presence of Negroes being in this war, but the real history behind those Negroes that they're now relabeling and reclassifying throughout history.
That part.
Okay. So my first question then is, are you saying that there were no runaways at all?
No.
Are you saying that there were no African
No.
descendants at all? What are we
No.
saying?
Okay, well, I can say to you, and we always tell Pope over here on our side that, if we're going to deal with the term maroon, and if we're going to deal with the term Estelusti, automatically, as me telling you I'm Estelusti, we have the heritage. And I sent you, remember Dr. Dixon, you talked, and I sent you the link when I did the Gullah. Did you watch the Gullah joint that I sent you?
Yes.
All right. So from me showing you that, I will be hypocritical to say that I don't think there wasn't no folk out of West Africa, right?
Right. That's why
I would be. I mean, I'm being honest with you. Right. You've seen us on our own platform. You're on the platform now. We've already covered the Gullah, which is tied to Estelusti, which obviously would be tied to the term Gullah War, which are obviously tied to Negro, right? Because the Gullahs are being called Negroes just like the Black Seminoles are being called Negroes by United States of America at this time. Do you agree with me on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wholeheartedly.
All right. So the word Negro we all have in common in this time frame of the war that United States is having with the people that's in the Southeast. Some obviously that are definitely what we call the warrior class. Shout out to the Red Sticks. Shout out to Tuscaloosa. You know what I mean? Where that Red Stick origin come from. But the same thing of it is that we're just stating that from what we've covered, not only we have the Gullah, who obviously, if you say Gullah or redemption, you know what I'm saying, as we've covered, it's tied to people that came out of what we call West Africa, you know what I'm saying, 15th century easy, tied to the Inquisition time frame, and we covered that, right? So, but there's the other side of this is that there's the Aboriginal people on this side tied to a culture we call it the mound building culture, and obviously prior to this 1800s, 19th century, basically, we got a warrior class being described in a very similar way that's tied to our culture as Esther Lusty that goes back to the 1540s. You see what I'm saying? So that's
Mhm.
why we are tracing it differently from when most who would just go with the popular ideal of just a runaway off of a plantation tied to our Gullah ancestry. You know what I mean? We're more dealing with the fact that we know that the English, the British, Anglo-Saxon, or whatever swarthy group of people tied to the British situation, were not the first contact with our indigenous side of our ancestry in the Southeast tied to Mississippian culture or the mound building culture that myself who has Muskogee ancestry would say we know that goes directly back to a mound building culture as far as our ancestry is concerned. That is why I only point out to, not saying that there wasn't a mixture or those things you just pointed out, just to be clarifying that that's not what I'm saying at all, for the record.
Right. So basically, what the next step in as we move forward and further examining things is to re-examine the origins, right? And
Yep.
Correct.
what we have to do is re-examine the origins of the Maroons who develop into the Black Seminoles. So we go back a step further,
Yes,
which
sir.
more and more information is coming out. And
Right.
if you recall, that's what I was saying. I was saying last time that we spoke that as we put these pieces together, right,
Mm-hmm.
we should continue to put the pieces together and bring them such that when a uniform manifestation of this research comes out, it's solid, so that people can't nitpick. Because of course we know they will, right?
Yes,
If
sir.
you get
Of course.
one time frame off, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you get 1,000 years versus the 5,000 years off, if you get one cultural thing off, then they will try to discredit the whole thing,
Yep.
Right.
right? And so that's what I'm saying. Our next step, right, in research is to re-examine those origins all the way, right?
Yep.
Because and I'll give you a good example. Here's where the next step in what I discussed in the dissertation is, right? And this,
Okay.
I think this will clarify things, right?
Mhm.
When I discussed the destruction of Gueldape, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
said that when the Wale or Wale, whichever one you want to say,
Yeah,
when
we know what
they
you're
Wale, yeah, I
saying.
got
attack,
you. You're right.
when they attack Gueldape, right? Those who were enslaved inside of began to set fires. And so if you recall in my dissertation, I said this is another piece of evidence that shows the relationship between what I said was Africans and
Mm-hmm.
Wale, right? Now, the next step in that research is, like I said, we go back and we re-examine that, right?
Yeah.
We re-examine whether or not those were actually Africans or were they Wale. And
Okay.
if we say that they were Wale, right, then that gives the evidence of melanated indigenous people.
Okay. So
You
let's
see, and
let's
that's what I'm saying.
let's stay right there. You
That's
on
how you
point.
continue to dig,
So
Right.
right?
so
You
check this
say
out.
yes.
So this is what we wanna. So we've been the good part about here at the party is we got people all from all over the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who can hold on, my camera switch. Who can take that genealogy and combine it with the history. So a lot of the things that we do, we like to have these conversations live because a lot of different scholars, brain power is much more powerful than just one individual, right? So let's just build real quick. So those people, so we are very confident that we can prove those things, not because of we're just so smart and figured it out. It's literally just because there's many of us who went on this trail because it was personal to us and we can connect the dots. All right, so let's start right here with the Mississippian mound building culture. All right, so first I want to show this map real quick before I read this, and I want you to see these regions.
Oh, can we blow it up a little bit, brother?
Yeah, yes, sir. I got you. I know it's super small. Hold on. I got to get all this extra stuff out the way.
Yeah, you know, I'm particularly interested along the coast there.
Yes, sir. Hold on. I'm going to get it bigger. Okay. Damn.
Uh-oh.
Let me get it back.
Okay.
All right. So this is probably as big as I can get it. The name.
I can make it bigger with my finger there.
Okay. All right, cool. So right now, this is what we're seeing is the Mississippi mound building culture where all these little lime green dots are the mounds. All right. Now we can verify this in our real life. I remember you from Folk Valley, right? From down the road.
Yep.
So you know about Mogi in Macon.
I was going to say that's the Macon area. When I was young, they would take us on a field trip to see those mound buildings. There's a
yes, sir.
There's a park actually in Macon that has it preserved.
I'm 10 minutes away. So what the point of us bringing this up is we know these things actually exist. This wasn't false history, right? Can we all agree? Okay.
Right.
Now, that culture, these are all the areas where this has been documented. They're saying since the year 800. Okay. They said from the year 800 to the year 1600, which is very important in this timeline that we are about to walk. Mm-hmm. Now, these places would be considered some of the heaviest slave areas according to the narrative. Would you agree? We talking Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, you know, all Tennessee, the Carolinas. These would be the places what they would consider was for sure slave areas, right? That we was told in the story, heavily populated with black people.
Yes, and a little further up, but we won't.
Right. But the Southeast to this day is where majority of black people are.
Right.
Okay. So what we're saying is these same people that were a part of this Mississippi mound building culture were the ones that later in history were not able to get onto these roles when they became the Seminole or the Choctaw or the Chickasaw, all of these different tribes that were in these exact same areas, because these are where the majority of your treaties came from, are these areas we see right here, not up here. They didn't care about New York, and New York, they weren't a major player when agriculture ran the world.
Crazy enough, I'm going to say, though, funny enough, that there is tribes up there, but the Treaty of New York, as people can go look up, was tied to a group we're going to be talking about today. We call the Muskogee. So they call Creek. So, yeah, I mean, there's people up there, but like you said, the mound building culture, because as you're showing on this map, the Northeast area doesn't have as much mounds as even the area up there by Michigan and up that area doesn't have as much mounds that's in what we call the Southeast corridor. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's why the mound building culture tied to what we call the Mississippi is very much known for being in the Southeast, covering those states from the Carolinas down into Louisiana, you know what I'm saying, underneath the Appalachian Mountains, Appalachia territories. So, I mean, you see it though. I mean, what you think about that, Dr. Dixon? Because I want to read something to you from Alabama's University, you know what I mean, after that.
No, the only thing that comes to my mind first is the misinterpretation. Like you said, you were 10 minutes away from that up Mogi, right?
Yep.
Okay. You've been to that park to where those mound buildings are, right? Mm-hmm. You've been down, you know, you could, I don't know if you still can, because like I said, I went when I was a school age guy, so we talking the 80s.
Yeah.
you can still go down. They still allow you to go down in there where they have the little exhibits, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
In those exhibits, then would you or would you not agree that those are full misinterpreted exhibits? Then
100%.
okay,
100%.
and that is what I was saying earlier, right? That as we continue to dig, we give that evidence that we presented in a certain manner, right? To which they will be forced to tell the truth and have to do these things, right? Because we don't have to, we don't even have to point fingers at them. All we have to do is say, just correct it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Right and
that's
simple.
redemption.
Because
That's corrected.
right, because we can agree that research continues. Now we understand that you have in the past skewed research or you skewed things in order to continue to have your culture as the primary culture. We understand that. We know you've done that. We're moving past that. We're giving you solid evidence that you cannot dispute. So now we want it to be corrected,
And
right?
here's where they have a leg to stand on. And this is what Mac is about to get into. So part of the problem is our ancestry, if you are from these areas, is going to be tied to indigenous people. The problem is the name that they gave these people, be it the American government, is not the original name. This is the name that they own as a corporate entity. So, for example, Seminole, right? You can't tell them who to go correct to put as their demonstration because that's their tribe. That's not the original people's tribe. This is what they created through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So they control it 100%. This is why they put who they wanted to put in positions of power, because they control them. This is why we'll see a misrepresentation, because they own the image and likeness of Seminole, Choctaw, any federally recognized tribe. They are already bought in and approved, or they would have never been federally recognized.
Right, this quote unquote 5 civilized tribes.
Correct. So we've all heard the stories, right? The $5 Indians, all these, those aren't made up stories. But the reason why, the reason why they wouldn't want to correct this on the public record is because we're talking about land, which this whole establishment was built upon. So you can't just simply tell those people, hey, yeah, you know, the ones that we said that we unalived and they got sick and that's how we got their land. No. That's really your land. How would you think that's going to turn over when people know that information? So the 5 civilized tribes are not our friend. They will not help us accomplish this. They will be the main advocates against it because everything that they have, they would lose.
I'm glad you said that.
Go ahead, brother.
Go ahead.
All right. Is there anything else you want to show on this right here?
No. So I just wanted them to know that anybody who doesn't know, go look up the Mississippian culture so we can be clear that we're saying that the genealogy of those people that you were speaking about, Dr. Dixon, would be tied to this Mississippian culture that they put on record that existed to the 1600, because that culture changed to a different name that they gave it that Mac is going to break down a little later. But go ahead, Mac.
All right, boom. In fact, give me that next one. That first one that I asked you to pull up.
Right here.
Dr. Dixon, right here. Yeah, this is going to be with the Crimson Tide, Alabama. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me blow it up. Hold on.
Alabama University. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, they know that the university is built on the mound building situation. See what I'm saying? So, shout out to my family out of Alabama. This you can make it bigger for the folk out there.
It's as big as I can get it.
All right, I'm trying to see it. All right, the city of Tuscaloosa, and obviously this word Tuscaloosa, we're going to show that in a minute too, in a lexicon tied to, as what Monte said, goes into the time frame of the 1600s, when the name that we're going to know is tied to certain treaties. But obviously prior to that in Alabama, the city of Tuscaloosa is most cities, like it says, like most cities in America, built on Native American land It says the University of Alabama, with its constant development and economic growth, is continuously lost in the forest. What do you say that word? So I'm looking at the joint. Newness.
Newness.
My bad. It says Native American students and faculty members, staff, and scholars are trying to get the university to remember where it is. So we're gonna scroll down. I just wanted to give them the introduction. It says obviously it says we are we. And it's real small, God now.
Yeah.
It's real small, but I got to give them this part though. Go down a little bit
Try
more.
if I can do. All right.
Yeah, that's better right there, right there.
All right,
That's right.
cool.
That's right. All right. So obviously it says from Marion Odell, American Studies professor, has been at the university since 2015 and teaches courses related to Native American history and studies. She became interested in the topic as a undergraduate student, went into it and did research and realized that the Native American history in itself, in this whole world, she said, would never get to the bottom of that in an entire career. It says Odell, and it's important that the students learn about Native American history because they are on Native land. When a group of log cabins arose near the fall line of the river, settlers named it after the Native American chief known as Tuscaloosa. It is a combination of the Choctaw word for warrior, Tuska, with the word for black, Lusa. This is also how the Black Warrior River got its name. Now, Dr. Dixon, Chief Tuscaloosa, in the place we call today Alabama, Alabama doesn't become a state underneath the Union or were claimed underneath the Union until 1830s, early, around that time.
Right, it becomes a territory, territory in the early 1800s. I think it reaches. I think it
1819.
reaches. Yeah, I think it reaches statehood by the early 1820s or 30s. One of the two. I can't think of right now.
Somewhere in there,
Yeah,
I mean,
before
roundabout, Indian removal time frame. You just say that as a marker. You know what I mean? So
Right.
after that time frame, Alabama becomes a state. However, this term Alabama goes back to a name of an indigenous people tied to that mound building culture, right? And it's called the Alabama. The Alabama were also tied to this chief who is in that territory that De Soto in 1540. In 1540, first contact, Spanish conquistador. This is who he battles with, dealing with the Battle of Mabilia. The Battle of Mabilia is tied to Chief Tuscaloosa. Now, I want to make sure I say this because I'm not going to read this. I just want to show that the Alabama University obviously knows the history of Tuscaloosa. You know what I'm saying? And that this term black is tied to the term in our indigenous culture, which will be tied to the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Muskogee, the Seminole, some Cherokee, some Wale, Yamasee, and many more, even the Gullah, who will be influenced living in this area to this term Luster. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's documented, obviously. You know what I mean? And the situation is here that what people have to understand is why is they're being described. The term Tuscaloosa means black warrior, like the word Tuskegee means warrior people. The word G is like the word Muskogee, and the word G means people. I understand my Escaloosa part of my heritage like this. Linguistically, I know where these words come from in our lexicons. I can show, I'm sure to everybody that's tapped in for this part of what I do know. You know what I'm saying? So this part that I want to display is just saying Tuscaloosa was primarily Creek. See, primarily. And it says, and Choctaw land. Chickasaw and Cherokee tribes have also been prominent in the region. So the place that is actually called Alabama in 1540 to the Spanish, as they were called, or even the Portuguese, will be called the Floridas. I'm not trying to be biased. Am I wrong about that, Dr. Dixon?
No, only part is that the Portuguese didn't venture. It was just the Spanish at this point going westward with De Soto. But it also goes back to what the brother just said. This is why it's going to be so hard, because then it kind of brings some I won't say discredit, but lack of merit, right, to the today's Native American cause, right? That this was their land, you know, and they would have to admit that
Correct.
it wasn't their.
Oh man, what happened?
And that
we good.
All of these things that they continue to get moving forward, they would definitely have to
and that's our issue.
See,
so we
and
two issues.
That's what I was saying about how we want to take that type of information, right? When you understand that strong historical piece there, right? Then you understand why the blacks who are dealing with the various tribes, right? Are having so many
issues,
right? Like right now, like I said, Zaria is with someone right now, right? He's with the Black Seminoles in Oklahoma. Right now, they are discussing some of those issues. Guess what one of those issues are?
What's that?
The mineral rights on that land.
Yeah.
You see, so it goes back to what you were saying and why we have to continue to put these pieces together, because these pieces, as we get further development and we look at nuances of who these people really are, it does have direct implications. So we got two things fighting, right? Your people have two things that are fighting against them, right? They got Native Americans who now would have to definitely give up all of those things that they're getting now. They would have to share and give those things up, right?
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening.
For the government and for the larger white American society, now what we're talking about is there is now even more undeniable information that makes the term, whether you all like it or not, but it makes the term reparations so much more powerful, because you've already given land
so you are on point.
Who
that's what we're trying to say.
Should have to share it because it wasn't all their land to begin with.
So Dr. Dixon, you connected like this.
I can't hear y'all for some reason.
Oh damn!
Can y'all hear me?
Hey, you know this happened last time. Hold on, we can hear you.
I can't hear you.
We can hear you though. We can hear you.
Is it me?
Nah. I hear you, man. You good? Hold on. It's him, because this happened last time.
Damn.
His screen blacked out, and when it blacked out, that's when the audio switched. Hold on. I see his chat. Hold on.
Oh man, we was having a good dialogue too, boy.
I forgot what he did last time though.
Okay, you can hear me. All right, I'm sorry, gentlemen. Maybe it's on my end because I can't hear you all.
Hold on.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Wait, we gonna
try to leave and come back. Hold on.
You're gonna have to.
I don't know what happened, brothers.
I just sent him the message.
All right, I'm gonna text him too.
Check the chat.
All right, there we go.
All right. Yeah, we ready to cook, bro. He connecting it. Yeah, let's roll.
I want you to pull up the next joint though, so when he pull up, we could be on time.
I already got
everything.
The Fort Mills.
Yeah, I want that Fort Mills, and then the next one right after that. Cause see, we don't cover the background of this territory now. The Appalachia. You know what I mean? I don't extensively cover the mound building situation. Shout out to Guy the Green. We're gonna be doing moundology soon. That's
Yeah.
him. I gotta give him his credit. We're gonna be doing a whole moundology just because of what we're talking about right now. But yeah.
Yeah, I got them loaded, just waiting on. Make sure we ain't tripping. Oh, the chat say we straight. So
Yeah, they listening.
okay, hold on, you back. Let's see.
I'm back and I can hear you. It's probably
All right,
something.
We on. Yeah, something
right.
happened on your screen. It blacked out for a moment, and then that's when you couldn't hear us no more.
Oh, okay.
But it's all good. Let's go ahead and get back to it.
Ain't no pressure.
We
I'm in
just
my
chalk
maroon
that up
chair
to
right
some
now.
technical difficulties.
Yes,
Ain't
sir.
no pressure.
Part of
I'm
the
lounging
game.
in the maroon chair, so we got time today. This right here, Fort Mims. Are you familiar with this, Dr. Dixon?
Oh, I hadn't heard that term in so long. Fort Mims. That's in Alabama, right?
In Alabama, right there in the
Yeah.
same place, right. Now, see, when people go on this timeline, because this is all tied to the Negro Wars.
Is it
So
Alabama or Mississippi now?
It's going to be considered the Mississippi Territory, but it's Alabama.
It's present day Alabama.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
what I'm gonna
gotcha.
say. All right. So I gotta sit up on this bad boy. So here we go. On August 30, 1813, a force about 700 Creek Indians destroyed Fort Mims. By the way, this group of Creeks would be the Red Sticks. It's going to say in present-day Baldwin County, for anybody that got family in them areas. It says killing 250 defenders and taking at least 100 captives. By the way, those 100 captives, they're stating in other records, not from this one, it's the one I'm going to use for tonight's presentation, but these 100 captives were clearly labeled today as Negroes or African-American slaves. It says in the first major battle of the Creek War of 1813, 1814, that's going to be the Creek Civil War. It says some 400 American settlers, U.S. allied Creeks, and enslaved African Americans had taken refuge inside the stockade hastily erected on the plantation of Samuel Mims, a wealthy resident of the Tensaw district of Mississippi Territory. See how you just asked Dr. Dixon, is it Mississippi or Alabama? See what I'm saying? So it says the Creek attack on Fort Mims, and particularly the killing of civilian men, women, and children at the end of the battle, outraged the U.S. public, thus prompting military action against the Creek Nation, which controlled what is now much of modern Alabama. See what I'm saying? So the Choctaw, we got Chickasaw, we got Cherokee, we got Muskogee. All these groups are in what we call today the present day area of the state we call Alabama, but and other groups of people as well. You know, Scottish, Irish people at this point. You know what I mean?
And
So
even French.
and French, exactly. You know what I'm saying? And,
Correct.
And along with the West African Gullah people who are not living in the Carolinas and now moved into the territories of what are called Indian Territory based off the French and Indian Wars that you brought up the French. See what I'm saying? So it's a conglomerate of peoples in these areas. Yeah, shout out to Miccosukee. They in that area as well. Before the word Seminole being used actually. So at the end of the day, this the policy called the U.S. federal agents and encourage Indian men to abandon hunting, adopt European-style agriculture, and focus on growing cash crops. U.S. leaders hoped to assimilate Indian peoples to a way of life that would free up their vast hunting lands for American settlement. When implemented, the plan created bitter divisions in the Creek society between those willing to adopt. You move up, God. I mean, Monte, look at that. I'm used to saying that shit like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Shout out to God of Green. It's just a habit. Adopt new ways.
Hold on, let me get it all the way up.
Yeah, appreciate you.
All right.
All right. And wish to retain the traditional culture. The Creek men who carried out the massacre were members of the Red Stick faction. You know what I'm saying? Now, remember, if anybody does know out there, the Red Sticks are also the Upper Creek, right? And the Upper Creek are the ones who want to keep the traditional ways, who are allying with other groups of people like the Shawnee, who we know, shout out to Tecumseh, you know what I'm saying? And them, which is mentioned in this paragraph. So, as it says there, though, as it mentions, followers of Shawnee leader Tin Kiswata, also known as the Prophet, and his brother Tecumseh, who advocated death to any Indians who allied with the Americans and preached adherence to the traditional Indian practices. In the mid 1813, as the Creek Nation disintegrated in civil war, the Red Sticks, determined to destroy a community of Creeks who had established plantations in the Tensar district, had taken refuge at Fort Mims. A force of 700 Red Sticks, see, but they're Upper Creek. Now, this is Alabama. This is Alabama, right?
Right.
So I want you to understand that's Alabama, right? Now, look, this Red Stick, by the way, tied to the Muskogee, is tied to a warrior class of people that live in what we call red towns. Are you familiar with that, Dr. Dixon?
Yes, that which dotted, we find remnants dotted all the way out to the Mississippi River.
Right. So there's red towns and there's white towns within the Muskogee/Creek Confederacy. You know what I mean? That we can show out that's in these mound areas. Would you agree?
Right.
And that's the warrior class, by the way.
Right. These are how it's being divided, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Jackson is looking for all of the white sticks.
That part.
Because he knows that he doesn't know, but he's trying to galvanize them in complete rebellion and opposition to all of the red sticks.
You understand what I'm saying? All right, make sure we're on the same page.
Right, that's why I'm just saying I think it's important for us to understand too that this was all the beginning and the inklings of how they were beginning to develop the Indian removal policy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Jackson, right? Okay, I'm sorry. I love history, though. We a step back.
That's what we do.
Right?
Go ahead.
A step back before Jackson, right? When the first issue started coming up, before it got to this fighting, right?
Right. Yeah.
When the first issue started coming up with the Creek Nation, there was an Indian agent, right, from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Indian agent, right, who actually brokered peace initially.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually removed. They were like, "What are you doing? We believe in divide and conquer." Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, you good.
James. Oh, okay. Yeah. We believe in divide and conquer. Why in the world did you broker peace?
Right.
Keep them fighting. And so when he was removed, they put in another one that ended up being also replaced by Wiley Thompson.
Yeah.
Who, of course, is in the Second Seminole War. But it was that whole idea, right, that part of Indian removal policy was based on getting them and this idea of divide and conquer. Right. And so that was Jackson's whole premise. And that's what he took to La Florida, into Florida when it became a territory. Then he took it to D.C. to make that full Indian removal policy.
So let's talk about that, like you said, though, like before Jackson, right? So a lot of people don't really understand the BIA's importance into our story. So just right here, a little passage about them, right? So the BIA is one of the oldest federal agencies in the United States, with roots tracing back to the Committee on Indian Affairs. So this is how it started. The Committee on Indian Affairs in 1775. Okay, so basically, right, the revolution, right, American Revolution, this time frame, as soon as that part was won, the first thing on their mind was, okay, we know we got to get right with these Indians. So they made a Committee of Indian Affairs, right, and it was first headed by Benjamin Franklin. That's very important. We're going to get to that in a second. For those of y'all who tune into us all the time, why is Benjamin Franklin, him being in this position, very important for this story? Because of one thing and one thing only. What you got, Matt?
I want to just we in the, for those in the chat, we see you. Shout out to Lee Willie. If we might have, in our conversation, if you heard us say that it was the Indians versus French, nah, we were saying that it was called the French and Indian War.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was called. So, but yes, the Indians that sided with the French, obviously who lost to the British, which obviously led to what we call 1763 Royal Proclamation, dealing with King George III. We very much understand that timeline and how
Mm-hmm.
those people who are now be in those areas of Louisiana and areas tied to the French, who are now who don't go to Oklahoma as well, the Dancing Rabbit Treaty, right, Monte, would be
Yeah.
labeled free people of color if they did not relocate to what we call Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? That's just in the treaty. So no, we're not saying
So
it
let's
was
get to
French
that real
against
quick, Mac.
Indians, by the way. Go ahead.
So we said it was first, this committee was first headed by Benjamin Franklin, 1775. It said that
What a person, huh?
That's why I say we're going to get to that in a second. So the committee oversaw trade and treaty relations. So this is how they got in. They didn't come in with war. They couldn't have. It's not possible. You can't come defeat somebody on their own territory when you don't know the terrain. You've never been there to analyze it. You have no recon. So they sent out these agents. You were just talking about agents, right, Dr. Dixon? So
Right.
these agents started off as trade agents. They were regulating the trade that the Indians had going on. This is when they had no relationship with any type of federal government. This is when they were trying to see what's going on, right? So as that's going on, this was formed under the War Department, though. So it's under the Department of Interior now, but it used to be called the War Department. Okay, so now this happens, and they gain statutory authority in 1832. 1832 is important because of this treaty right here. So this treaty affected a lot of our people, depending on where you're from. So the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek was a treaty signed on September 27, 1830, and proclaimed on February 24, 1831, between the Choctaw American Indian tribe and the United States government. This treaty was the first removal treaty, which was carried into effect under the Indian Removal Act. All right. The treaty ceded about 11 million acres of the Choctaw Nation in what is now Mississippi, in exchange for about 15 million acres in the Indian Territory in Oklahoma. So this is what you got people in Oklahoma right now. So basically, we've broken down this treaty multiple times on this channel. But just to give a summary for those who may not be hip, and just for a talking point for us, Dr. Dixon, basically in this treaty, it outlines in great detail that if you didn't go, that you were going to basically stay here and become a citizen, a free person of color who ended up becoming colored, Negro, Black, African American, whatever you want to call it. But those who chose to go to Oklahoma were supposed to be allowed to get on the rolls and get allotted land out there. The reason why this is so important is because the BIA, when they got their supreme power, it really came off the back of this treaty right here. And every other treaty that followed the Indian removal was in a similar fashion, basically saying, if you do not go to Oklahoma, you are no longer an indigenous being. You are going to be whatever takes over this territory later and claims it. You will be a citizen of that jurisdiction. But obviously, we know that some of the people who signed these treaties had nefarious backgrounds. But even if they were legit, there was no way to spread that news to all of the people who live in this landmass who would be affected by this treaty, right? And we talked about Benjamin Franklin earlier, and he had a famous writing, The Observations of Mankind. Are you familiar with it, Dr. Dixon?
Vaguely. I haven't heard that thing in so long.
It's all good, because we're gonna
I would
bring
have
it up
to,
real quick.
you definitely got to bring that one up for me.
It's all good, because we're gonna read one passage and we're gonna leave it alone. But it's very important because remember, he was the one in charge of Indian Affairs, the first ever committee. Okay.
Yeah, Benjamin Franklin.
And this is what he said about it. So he said, let me blow it up for the people. So the ending remarks of his statement, it says, which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we would call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also, the Saxons only excepted, with who the English make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. So this was in the 1700s.
That's 1751.
So when he became in charge of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, this was before that. So he's saying that America is wholly swarthy. So he was in charge of the Indian affairs. So he know what these people look like. He was out there regulating trade. And this is what the firsthand source is saying, that what America looked like at this time in 1751. So,
hey, Dr. Dixon, what do you
So
what do you think about that?
Well, that to me further develops how and demonstrates how much they had this vested interest in doing something with all these quote unquote swarthy people, right?
correct.
Because look, when it becomes the officially Bureau of Indian Affairs, right? Look who's over it.
Yes, sir.
John C. Calhoun, a noted slaver.
Right.
You see, so that to me is that, amalgamation where they come into like you said, they're coming into realization of who they're actually dealing with, right?
Right.
And they come into realization of what's actually going on, right?
Yep.
Such that, but in 50 years, right? Because that was 1775, correct?
Well, no. This document is from 1751, but he took that position in 1775.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Right.
1751, when he comes into the realization, right? To 1824, right? So that's 75 years, right? That is what we can then officially look at as that transformation period in which they were deciding exactly how and what they were going to do with these indigenous
Correct. What's the strategy? That's exactly what we are saying. And they couldn't wipe us out through war. Go ahead, Matt.
Right. No, he on point though. I mean,
yeah,
as
you
see, this is you seeing what we showing because of these things that we come across. So we just had obviously becoming.
So that 75-year period is that development of the entire issue of how they are going to classify, as well as how they're going to subdue the melanated people.
Melanated, period. That's the term, right?
They don't care where you from.
Melanated, dark skin, you swarthy looking people are going to be classified in one group, dealing with us now
one
based
history.
on what Benjamin Franklin's saying. See what I'm saying?
Right.
All right. Cool. I was going in that last joint before he showed the Benjamin Franklin quote from him. Can you hear me?
You can hear me?
Yeah, okay. I can hear
all right. All right. So even as Monte presented that when he became tied to the first group, dealing with the presentation of the 1775 BIA, the first Indian group, him, Benjamin Franklin, then 1751, and then you can go back even further in Philadelphia to him being the first one tied to, Freemasonry, Grand Lodges, and all that kind of stuff too. Correct. Since he makes this statement, since it was brought up earlier about the French and Indian thing, funny enough, he's making this statement when you read the Observations of Mankind in 1751. This is 3 years prior to the French and Indian War. Literally. You know what I'm saying? They call it a 7 years war in certain cases, but the time frame is 1754 to 1763. You know what I mean? Now, crazy enough as that French Indian War part goes back to, and we were showing on the last link, I'm gonna read this real quick because it's tied to the Choctaw and how they're also being included into this situation with We were just breaking down. And it says a week before the Fort Mims attack on August 30th, 1813, a Choctaw man reported that he had seen a large contingent of Creeks on the move near the Alabama River. Although some Choctaw and Creek people counted relatives among the villages of other nation, historically they had more often warred against one another. Ultimately, the attack on settlers at Fort Mims and actions of some Creeks to mentally resist changes brought about by an invasive American presence forced Choctaws to respond. And it says that basically the Creek Indians faced increasingly intrusive American presence on their lands in the early 19th century. 1805 treaty with the United States led to the establishment of the Creek Federal Road, a horse and wagon path that ran through the heart of Creek, what we call Muskogee country. And that's where I want to kind of, because our time in the night, and I know everybody's late night. I hope y'all vibing with us. Monte, it's in the link that I sent you. And if there's anything you want to ever, add in or stop us at, Dr. Dixon, you always can, add on. Because I wanted you to see, based off of what we want to present, off we reading the dissertation, our feedback from us reading it and our research from the time we've met you. You understand what I'm saying? In this project. Right. All right. So, and to keep it kind of the bottle up, so because this one I think covered them all. Remember, Monte, the one where it covers 1600 to 1840.
Yeah, I already got it up.
All right, you can pull that one up, and then from there, I could read off the different treaties tied. Like the matter of fact, for those who don't know, the Treaty of Fort Jackson, that was summer of 1814. There's another one in 1821. Different Indian Springs Treaty, etc.
Right.
All this is tied to Alabama, by the way. See what I'm saying? Alabama. Feel me? Now, remember.
Hey, before you read it,
all right, go ahead.
1600. Remember, the Mississippian mound building culture, they said ended in 1600.
Correct.
Okay. What they say, Matt? Muskogee Creek, 1600 to 1840. What do we know about this time frame in the 1800s? This Indian removal time. So they said that the creek existed from 1600 to 1840. So do y'all just keep that in mind? Go ahead, Matt.
Now, as it says here, the first thing is it says, the Muskogee people called Creek by the British settlers. That's not by the Spanish, by the way, as you notice. That's not by the French. You see what I'm saying? Right. This is a British term that they're being called, that we popularly today call Creek. But Muskogee is going to be the root. That's why I always say, shout out to my Muskogee. And it says are direct descendants of the great mound builders of what are today the southeastern states of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina, as the culture of their ancestors dissolved in the wake of a new diseases and chaos brought on by the Spanish conquistadors. Remember, I brought it up earlier, Dr. Dixon, right? Hernando de Soto, right? 1540, right? And it says groups of survivors spread out and formed their own tribes. So there was a diaspora when the Spanish came amongst the mound building culture. And after that war, tied to that Battle of Mobilia in Alabama, to the people they're calling Tuscaloosa, and that term black, describing them. Swarthy would be what Benjamin Franklin would say, right? The Muskogee were comprised of not just a single tribe, but a union of several, forming the Mogi Confederacy. Individual tribal towns shared common cultural traits while maintaining their own individual political power, autonomy. And it says growth of the Confederacy was a combination of population growth, conquering and absorbing other tribes. They were fighting amongst each other too. And it says, and taking refugees from tribes destroyed by European encroachment, which means they were taking European people in. They were taking West. You know what I mean? Like there's a conglomerate of people being, tied to the autonomous political structures of these tribes and chiefdoms, tied to the Muskogee, known to the Creek, British by the Creek. So again, as it shows, Upper Creek, you know what I'm saying, in this paragraph, much as the lives of their ancestors were forever changed by the Spanish conquistadors. The Muskogee faced challenges brought on by the colonial European powers, Spain, England, and France. In the 1600s and early 1700s, in addition to the newly independent Americans in the late 1700s into the 1800s, the English called the Muskogee the Creek, probably due to the large amount of rivers, creeks, streams in their lands. The English further divided the Muskogee into Upper Creek, living among the Coosa and the Tallapoosa rivers, and the Lower Creek. Because the Lower Creek, technically in the Chattahoochee and Flint rivers right there, you can slide up Monte. It's going to
Yeah.
show you that these people are actually closer to what we call today the British, or we call the 13 colonies jurisdiction going into the time frame of 1763. Easy. You know what I mean? And before that, actually. So George Washington and all that's tied to this, because most people also might not know that the people called the Muskogee are the first out of the 5 civilized tribes to be considered civilized. Literally, right after the American Revolution, George Washington, in the time frame of him being president, signed the Treaty of New York with the Muskogee. You know what I'm saying? And there was some Scottish and different people involved that influenced that, and it caused the Civil War later on that we know about. That was in 1812 to 1814, which goes right into the Gullah and the Negro Wars. Are you following me, Dr. Dixon? I want to land.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Am I tripping at all? Anything sounds crazy? What I'm saying?
No, not yet. I mean, these are all plausible things here.
Right.
Okay. So
I got something I want y'all to think about, but not right now because I don't want to ruin your line of thought. But I just remind me to go back to something Ben Franklin said at the end. Go ahead, bro.
Okay. No problem. And within that though, that's the only thing I really wanted to present that it showed in this document right here. From them knowing in Alabama culture and different things that the Tuscaloosa, right, is 1540. See what I'm saying? And I can land even with obviously the political document right after the Negro Wars are supposed to be settled, going to Reconstruction, what we're being known as in the Southeast, even if we weren't with the term Tusker put in front of it. Yes, Muskogee is a language, Lee Willie. It is definitely. So it also is tied to the people that were speaking that language from 1600 to 1840. Because you weren't finding it. Matter of fact, I got the lexicon. Matter of fact, we're gonna do it like that, Monte, because it's getting close.
You want to go to that?
Go to the
because I want to
lexicon.
hit him with one last thing. It ain't gonna take me long to do what I gotta do, but the lexicon, or which one was that? Oh, let me see.
The lexicon is gonna be this one. Matter of fact, I'll highlight it right now. Boom. The lexicon, and then my only last joint is obviously the Reconstruction Treaty. After the Seminole Wars, we're gonna let Dr. Dixon give us his conclusion from what we're presenting tonight, dealing with the project.
Yeah, hold on one second. I see it.
Yeah, and then this next. After this, put this next. Shout out to my Esther Lucy. All right, on page can you search on page Esther Lucy?
Yeah, hold on.
Make it easy for the folk. And we can put this in the chat for the people too.
Let me see, what year is that? I just want to put a time frame on it.
This is going to be. Hold on.
It's giving me. Hold on. They spelled it with the V on here?
No, yeah, well, ESTE dash LVSTE.
No, I'm missing something.
I could tell you what it is though. Page, I think. Hold on, let me find it for you. I can probably find it.
Bro.
Give me 1 second.
All
right, here we go. I'm in there. Hold on 1 second. I'll tell you what page. Don't fail me now. Yeah.
Yeah, but Miss Angela said something. She said the Negro moniker was a way to lump all those swarthy brown people together, denying them their indigenous heritage and birthright. And that's exactly what we getting at. Was
Right.
the yeah.
See, because
It,
it was decided upon, and this is the thing I've always tried to get people to understand, right? When you look at the history of enslavement, right, and you look at the East Indian slave trade, then you look at the Trans-Saharan slave trade, then you look at the transatlantic slave trade, regardless of the sizes, right, or how many you think came over in those numbers,
yeah.
the issue is when the East Indian and the Trans-Saharan began to formulate, right?
Yep.
Anyone could be enslaved, right?
Right.
The first group that the Romans, I mean, the first group that the Europeans enslaved were on the Canary and Madeira Islands, and they were remnants of the Roman Empire, right?
Matter of fact,
Then you have, you have this problem that you always had between England and Ireland, and it's because England tried to enslave the people of Ireland first. That was their first group they tried.
You found
see,
it, Monte.
so
Make it bigger. My fault.
what
My bad.
I'm saying is it developed to the point where they came to understand that melanated people were the best workers physically, that they can work in longer periods of time with the sun, but they also already had all of the ingenuity.
See, that's the only part I disagree with, is that the slavery that happened had nothing to do with taking them and doing forced labor, because you can't force me to do labor on land I already own. You see what I'm saying? Like at this time we talking about, no, you
I
can't.
can. If I take control of that land from you, and I then force you to continue to do crops on that land, but I take those crops from you too, I can.
So
I
at
don't
this
understand
time,
why you would say that can't be done.
so I'm talking about at the initial time, right? So when this first happened, like when these treaties get signed, they wasn't enforcing them right away. It took basically until the Jim Crow time frame when they were really removing. Think about it. We are all old enough to know my grandfather is still alive. He 100 years old. Okay. Most people in our family lost their land in the early 1900s or the late 1800s. It wasn't a whole long time ago. My grandfather was born in 1924. So his father was the one that lost the family land. So that's only one generation removed for me. So you are right. Eventually, like when they came with taxes and the whole sharecropping, but sharecropping didn't exist in these areas in 1820, 1830, when they saying that we were supposed to be slaves. We weren't even accounted for in their system. And the treaties proved that, because if you did a treaty with the people in our area in the 1830s and we didn't become citizens till after that, you would have been only available to be in the so-called slavery system for 20 years.
Well, that's the whole development though of plantation society, right?
Right.
That plantation society had to develop over time as well.
Right.
Just because the laws, there's always the theory and the practical, right?
Right.
The theory was that they made these laws and they made it legal and everything else. But the practical part was that they had to continue to develop. And Florida is really a primary case, right? Where we see that, because it took them, just like they got La Florida ceded over, but it took 2 years for them to take over. Then they had to go through that whole period in which they were trying to push the indigenous people out of North Florida, because that had the most fertile land, where they wanted the new burgeoning crop, which was cotton, to come in.
And Florida wasn't even really booming like that for the cotton.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that was
Florida
Louisiana, that was Arkansas, that was Texas, that was Mississippi.
Right. Florida has
too wet
a very, very slow development.
Yeah.
You know, I remind people all the time, the city of Los Angeles is about 120 years older than the city of Miami. So that gives you an idea of how slow, you know, Florida is to develop. That's why I said it's a kind of a good snapshot to see how plantation society. So you're right, plantation society didn't do the complete job. Sharecropping and things of that nature began to kind of finish the job.
We was winning off planting. This won't be popular to a lot of people, but I don't care. I'm gonna stand on it because I just know it to be true. Our people, based on what I'm telling you right now, and us owning the land in the most profitable agriculture areas, we dominated during the plantation era. It was not what they, okay, you don't have to force nobody to go get no money and no food. If the money is made from the land and you need to know how to cultivate this land and have the people to do it, you don't have to force nobody to be in that situation. Okay. A homeless person would love to go sleep at the grocery store. This is the equivalent of what we saying. If you get on some land with all the crops, they making all the money. That means you're going to be well taken care of. Versus if you have no land and you have to go shack on somebody else's land, you at they beholden. But Matt, I want you to get to what you want to get to, because I want to touch this. When I'm going to share something with y'all. A lot of people that be on the internet, they be capping about their genealogy. I'm going to show you how you can easily prove and tie yourself to these areas without having to find any type of role or anything like that. But go ahead, man. Go what you got, bro.
Yeah, this is one part right here, though. You know, two things I'm gonna show, and then this is my presentation because Dr. Dixon has been with us. He brought, well, actually, Zeri Halley also put the brother, Dr. Dixon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay. Remember the last time? I think that's not the last time, but the time before that. What's the brother's name out of Oklahoma that came on with us?
Brother Conley. Anthony Bush Conley, Brother Conley.
Right. And I remember our conversation with the brother, and I appreciated him for expressing his genealogy tied to Oklahoma and how his people were removed, right, from these areas in the Southeast, right? And now we're in Oklahoma and they're being labeled freedmen. Am I right about that? When we had a conversation with him? Okay.
Right.
So before the Indian removal, right, based off of the cultural things that we just got through breaking down, like Tuscaloosa. We just, everybody's a Tusker. Everybody's not trying to tussle, right? But when it comes down to being described as Luster or being tied to confederacies and tribes without mixtures and all, no matter the excuse of things, you're living in these areas and you're indigenous to these areas, and this word is being used to distinguish them. And that part that's highlighted in blue, I'm gonna start where it states the treaty with the Seminole Indians, March 21st, 1866. This is going into the Reconstruction period. The five freedmen treaties and all that stuff time frame. Right. It's going to say the U.S. Seminole Nation of Indians, Article Florida 14 Stat 755 756. Notwithstanding, that's this sweeping language, the United States itself continued to distinguish the Estalusti. Shout out to my Estalusti to be outside. Now, you see it said in parentheses, Dr. Dixon?
Right, now freedmen.
Now freedmen from tribal members of Native American ancestry. Since, for instance, when the Dawes Commission in 1906 created official membership roles for the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, it created two roles, one for those of Native American ancestry, the Seminole Blood Roll, and one for the Estalusti, the freedmen roll. So, and it says a members of mixed ancestry was classified in accordance with maternal ancestry. We talked about this. Remember how they would classify you based off your mama and the position of what clan she in and all that?
I need you to make sure you email me that particular part, because I had a discussion with someone and I couldn't find this. And I need to make sure I have that. Maybe I need to just
put it
take
in the chat too, but Matt can send it to you as well.
I'm gonna send it to you.
Do what you need right here, but we definitely got it on deck because we stay
thank
heavy.
you.
Because this was IndianSenate.gov.
Right.
Yeah, this ain't no blog.
Right. This ain't no blog or nothing. This is tied to. So when people
No.
like right now,
I can
you
tell
know,
that writing. I know what that.
right.
I looked at
Right.
that writing.
So
enough.
we know that the Red Sticks tied to the Muskogee heritage and the dark-skinned folk of the Muskogee were in the lexicon. Matter of fact, you can pull it up next, Monte. Perfect example.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The lexicon of the Muskogee, which goes from 1600 to 1840. And obviously, I said it earlier, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Seminole, and many other groups that are absorbed into these confederacies they call properly defined civilized. Now, in this time period from 1600 to 1840, you know what I mean? The red towns, as me and you talked about, and how they're also tied to the Upper Creek, which would be Muskogee, are the ones that are considered the warrior class, and there's obviously a priest class to these groups too. But the warrior class is also known in the lexicon of the Muskogee as Tuscaloosa. You know what I'm saying? Tuskegee, warrior people, black warrior. So from the time frame of the conquistadors' first contact with us, Aboriginal folk tied to the mound building culture, going all the way into 1866 now. We're being known in our heritage to be known as Estalusti. You know what I'm saying? Freedman was just like, it's a freedman role. So which has more reverence to you, to call yourself an Estalusti or call yourself a freedman?
Of course, it's going to. You want to go with your original name. You don't want to take a name that's given to you by someone else.
That's all I'm saying, Dr. Dixon.
Yeah,
Estalusti. Right, you ain't got it. That's all I'm saying. Because this is what they're telling you in the actual document, right? That before them folks were brought on Indian Removal Act, right? In the areas of the Southeast, they would have been known as Estalusti, aka Negroes, right? Based off the Negro War.
Right.
Also known as Seminole because they're not assimilating, right? They're not assimilating, and they say they're runaways and wild folk, not assimilating to be civilized yet. You know what I'm saying? It's the rhetoric, but it's there. I mean, Yacht Seminole, free people, but and shout out to my Maroons. We don't like to assimilate, and they say, but we fighting injustices. Shout out to my Gullah. They want redemption for what's done to them. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't mad at none of those situations of any of those mixtures, and they're preserving their culture today. Did you find it?
Yeah, I got it.
Monte? Okay. And we put this on our community wall. You know what I mean? So this is just to show, and you can just go down to Esther. Look, you look for the E's. You know what I'm saying? It should take you there.
Oh, all right.
All of these documents y'all bringing up, y'all are able to email to me, right?
Dr. Dixon, I got this. Is nothing. This is
okay.
Easy.
Because I think it was something important there in a much broader scope, right? And that's why I wanted to wait to the very end, because it's a much larger, broader scope that we have to look at as well. But I don't want us to skew off of the point, because it will if we get into that discussion. So
yeah,
I just want to point it
invite
out,
you back, but I'm gonna send you everything.
You all look at it. So let me know when we on our last points, because
This is my last one. This is my last one right here. I know we gotta go. I got stuff to do too. I understand.
Have to get out of here tonight, brother.
I appreciate your time. No, I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
for this dialogue. Let me do it like this. No, go to the community wall and just put this in the chat. You feel me?
Yeah, hold on.
Put that in the chat, and I'll try to. Hopefully, I can find. I gotta find on page again, but it's in this book, the lexicon. You know what I'm saying? But I know we put it on the community wall so I can make it easy for folk. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody thinks that I'm capping, so you saw it in that document, which is tied to the Reconstruction period in 1866, and that word Estalusti, the word Lusti, and all the variations tied to our culture, the Mississippian culture, Muskogee culture.
While he's doing that, I got a quick question for you all, brother.
Go ahead.
Because this brother got quite heated with me.
Cool.
He got quite heated with me because I kept referring to the term Afro-Seminole Creole, right?
Oh, they don't like that. Some people don't like it. Yeah, some people
like that shit at all.
Right, and I understand why, because it it skews the idea, you know,
Of
and
who they
it
really are.
actually excludes the indigenous portion, but it also includes the idea that
They
Seminoles
had to
were
come from
somehow
Africa.
that Seminoles was somehow. Now the Afro part is because it does hold some West African words, right? But my thing is this, right? In all of my research, right, what we understand is that
You had it, Monte.
right?
Yeah, no, I know. I'm trying to see something.
Okay, go ahead. My bad,
Geechee,
Dr. Dixon.
Geechee went into a diaspora, right? Because it incorporated these indigenous words, right? And so when I've spoken to people in Florida, I've spoken to people in Texas, I've spoken to Black Seminoles in Oklahoma, right? No one can give me a definitive term, right, for that language and how it began to take place. They just say the words of, I've heard them call it the words of the old ways. I've heard them call it the old language. I've heard them call it different things like that, mainly words of the old ways and the old language, right? But I never got anybody to tell me what the name is and what they called it, right? So when we say Afro-Seminole Creole, right, that term does leave a very bad taste, right? But the issue is we have to call it something. We got to identify it. Now, we can change that identifier at some point as we do more research, right? But we can't just continue to say the old way, right? The old language. Because then no one will really understand what we're talking about.
I understand that too. You
So,
got to reach it. It's a bridge to this. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I
right.
mean,
What I'm saying is,
you know, from the outside looking in, I understand what you're saying. You know,
right. I'm
like
not
somebody doing it.
supporting that you must call it the Afro-Seminole Creole. What I'm saying is this is the name that they came up with.
Right.
Because we have still yet to uncover what name the original creators gave it.
Exactly. I understand that too. I get that part.
Yeah, and the brother was really going off on me, and I'm like, well, brother,
Some
it
people take it
doesn't
real,
matter
you
what
know.
we call it,
Yeah.
you know?
That's
That was
my
triggering part two. See, when you said it right there, you could have triggered them right there too. Because see, these people debate all day about all these things right here, Dr. Dixon. So I understand how, you know, you probably were like, I ain't mean it, that your intentions wasn't to
Yeah, they take it too literal.
disrespect them. You know what I mean? But see, like you said, from the fact that you put the word Afro as a prefix in front of the word Seminole, and how when anybody goes look at the word Seminole, obviously Cimarron, and that term being considered wild or a runaway. You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't give people the cultural things that they might know that at a certain time frame why they're being labeled in that Seminole standpoint because of what took place
Right,
within the Creek Civil War and the Muskogee. They don't know that.
But you have to also figure out a way to bring all of them together, right? Because there were also plantation English words in that language.
Yes, there was, definitely.
You know,
Definitely.
so there were
That's why we got the
African
V.
words in that language. There were indigenous words in that language. Now, maybe they shouldn't have used the word Seminole to represent those indigenous words.
Yeah, because Seminole got nothing to do. I think, Seminole don't got nothing to do with it.
Seminole comes later. Seminoles, there were no, like he was getting upset because he was like, there were no Seminoles at the time. And I'm like, I agree.
Yeah,
I was like, so it does sound like a misnomer. I was like, but what is it then? What do we call it? When can we change it with the accurate? And we can only continue to do the research until we get to it. And until we get to it, we got to call it something, you know?
What you think about how we presented this to you tonight before we get out of here, though, as far as what
I still got one more thing.
I think it's solid research. Something that's why I said, if y'all don't mind, here's a point that has resonated with me on a much broader thing. When you brought up that thing about brought up the piece rather, with Franklin.
Yeah, Observations of Mankind.
Right, and he describes the other Europeans, and he still describes them as swarthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What he's, to me, that's the indication, right? That there wasn't this overall sweeping of getting blacks out of Europe, that it took a much longer period of time than they want to give it credit for, right?
That's correct.
And, you know, to call them all Moors may not be historically accurate as well, as we continue to look at more evidence.
Right.
That's just an overall sweeping term now that we're using for black people.
Mm-hmm.
But I doubt very seriously that all of those black people that were in Europe were also of the Islamic faith.
They were not.
Right?
Oh, no.
So,
the Moor.
So that's
what we know.
Saying.
North Africa ain't the same as Moorish or look like your descriptive term.
So that's what I'm saying. The term really is a term that we're using, and they're using basically for black. Right?
Exactly.
Now, what resonates with me as well, though, is when he says that basically the United Kingdom, right, are the only true original whites, right? And that kind of resonates with me as well, because we never have gotten a clear explanation as to why, right, all of these different quote unquote these kings and these queens, right?
Yeah, the royalty,
the royalty, why all of them, when you go back, there's only a small number of lineage, meaning they're primarily related, right?
Correct.
So that, to me, kind of bolsters that idea.
Right,
you know,
that it wasn't that many.
It was a very small number of white people.
Correct.
And you all were intermarrying, and you all were
getting your numbers
were basically inbreeding.
Yes.
Right? And you have done that to get to the numbers that you all have now.
Correct.
This is why I feel like, even when you were talking hundreds, right? Hundreds of years later, right? Incest is still a part of your culture.
Right.
Because this is at your roots.
Right. And speaking of that, so the last thing I wanted to show you, like I said, a lot of people, what makes it so personal is when we go do our genealogy and we understand. So we just broke down the history, right? And we just saw that they're saying, this is them, the establishment, saying that the Creek existed until 1840. And they're saying that they came from the Mississippi mound building culture. So this is the end off the premise to show you how several people relate to this. So this is my own personal genealogy. I ain't showing you nobody else. I'm showing you mine.
Okay.
Right? So I want you to see that how easy this is for somebody to be able to go tie themselves to them areas. So I'm gonna go up to the top right here. So I'm gonna go to let's see. Right here. Yeah, this page. So it's a couple of my great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, right? So my great grandmother was born in 1840 in Alabama. Okay. All her parents was in Alabama before they came to Louisiana. I have another great grandfather was in Alabama, born in 1830. Okay. You can see it right here, the names and the birth date. And this is all compiled from census records. I even found marriage certificates in Alabama for people. I know what they look like when I verified this with my grandparents. They remember these names and it all lined up. All right. So several people. I got another one, great grandmother born in 1829 in Kentucky. Okay. Got another great grandfather was born 1835 in Virginia, and none of these people were slaves, and they all came to Louisiana after the acts passed, the treaties was passed, and now they were removed out of that land. They came to Louisiana, which was west. You see what I'm saying? Like west of the Mississippi. So now they coming in, no prior slave, and they had land when they got to Louisiana. And it was allotted land from these treaties. And they had this land up until the 1900s when sharecropping and things of that like. And this right here, to get this far back, won't take most people. If you know your grandparents' names, you can get back to the 1830s and 40s in no time. It's not hard to do. The records exist. And when you see these records, you won't see, it's very hard to find your people on census rolls, mainly because what we just read was if you didn't decide to go to Oklahoma, you would not be included. You would be trying to come in later as a freedman, but your people was not freedmen. They weren't slaves. They were the original people. They just were on the
they were outside. And
yes,
they
sir.
said, if you are outside, then we're not going to keep
getting
any records of you.
And this is our issue. We were marooned. And so the people that went to Florida didn't become a state till way later in the game. So a lot of people from this creek. Exactly. So a lot of people that were affected by these treaties, they fled to Florida because Florida wasn't touched yet. But they had to start all over. They didn't have land allotted to them yet out there in Florida, right? The way they did in other areas west of the Mississippi.
Right.
Not just Oklahoma.
That was never going to happen. They were never going to give allotted land in Florida, North, South Georgia.
Exactly. So what I wanted to show here is this isn't just something we derive from just simply reading articles or historical documents. It also coincides with our genealogy right on par. Like there's no coincidence that the same time the Indian removal happened is the same time my ancestors was leaving Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and coming to Louisiana. It's no coincidence that they chose that time to leave when they had already been there for who knows how long, because the Indians didn't keep census records of themselves.
Right.
So we wouldn't know, okay, they got here in what year.
Keeping records of them would have been against the treaties.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is what we're getting at. So it's hard to go improve yourselves when the whole system was built on not allowing a certain group of people, aka the ones that look like us, to prove this story. They put us with a Negro, slave, African-American narrative to keep our eyes off of the prize, basically.
It was easier that way because they never kept records of anybody outside of.
Yeah.
So it just boasted it. It made it easier.
Yes, sir.
Veronica. Gullah. Yeah, we want redemption. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Esther Lusty. Hey, listen. That's why when the first time I told you about this Esther Lusty thing, Dr. Dixon, you know what I'm saying? We leading with this term. That's why we delineate ourselves in that way. You know what I mean? So, and it's on record. It's not no, we just made it up. You know what I'm saying? Like we're telling you from what we know in our indigenous way of saying it to you, what we would, we rather be known as Esther Lusty than called African Americans, actually. You know what I'm saying? And,
I understand that.
You know what I mean? Because that's on record. You know what I mean? That's on record. That's not something Obama gave us.
Right.
In 2012.
Yeah.
You feel me? Our people were known as this in the Southeast. And being the people that even want to say they tied to the Gullah side and they were brought in to this territory in this time frame, it was amongst the mound building culture. They still would be popularly known by like how today you walk outside, you're all called Black or Negro. So it's the same thing going with that situation. You see what I'm saying? And that's the situation at that time frame based off of our culture and our understanding of Esther Lucy. You know what I mean? So, and I just why I just had leave comments on here. We dealt with the Negro question series because we understand this word Negro is obviously tied to people that's not the Aboriginal people. You see what I'm saying? But at the same time, that mixture did take place. We're not denying that it wasn't a mixture. We're just showing that there was a disenfranchisement took place, and we're on the record, as I showed you tonight, as being known as Esther Lucy before even going into Oklahoma. See what I'm saying? Going back to 1540 with Tuscaloosa and the Red Stick situation. I mean, shout out to my Esther Lucy. You know what I mean? All my rooms outside. You already know what it is. I appreciate your time, Dr. Dixon.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate the chat. All the
No
love
problem.
y'all showed.
The more we discuss these things, the more information we're able to put the information together.
Correct.
Because that's how we're going to ultimately be able to present that solid case in which they're going to have to, just like I give you a quick example, and I really have to go. They have now, challenged all of those map makers, McGraw, and all of them, because they have repeatedly tried to make Europe and white areas larger,
bigger,
so you can think that psychologically that they are the more
superior,
advanced or larger society.
Correct.
And so now they have now been called out so much with all of this different proof. They're getting ready to have to go back and redo these maps. The thing about it is, right, even when they redo these maps, I guarantee you these white teachers are not going to use them. They're not going to use them.
They're going to have to redo it.
They'll redo them, but they're not going to use them. They're going to keep those.
And that's why they want to take it out of school,
They're going to keep those old maps in their classroom. They are not going to do it.
I appreciate your time, Doctor. I really do.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, I'm going to reach out to you. I'll send you the links that I showed you tonight so you can go through them.
Yes, please do,
when you get time, hopefully we can get you back on here and you let me know what you come from it. You know what I'm saying? Because this is a project, like you said, and we're supporting the Black Seminole Project, Esther Lucy, obviously. You know what I'm saying? And getting people to get more understanding of this conversation that we're having tonight. So appreciate you. Shout out to the party. You heard me?
I thank you, brothers. I appreciate your all support.
All right, bro. Peace. Have a good one, man.
Peace, y'all.
All right, y'all. Y'all know how we do. Everybody going. I'm finna go and end it off real quick, man. Y'all keep it positive. Y'all keep it pushing. Appreciate all the support. It's your homeboy with the news. Man, I'm gone.
Whenever I start to feel alone, I just play the voice that I say before things change. Now I read the message you sent, trying to tune out when you say I know you love me, but if you just forget about us.